Hello friends, so just doing a quick update. I thought I'll just give you my opinion and my perspective on what's happened with the Christmas market terrorist attack or jihadist attack in Germany. Let's go through a few crucial details. Notice how when the news is being reported on about what happened, I've just made a post about this on my YouTube page. There's no mention of the religious background, ethnicity. Only just recently it's come out that he's described the jihadist as a Saudi dissident. But mainstream media, this is what I'm looking at. Christmas market attack in Germany. 5 dead, over 200 injured in Germany market attack. Where's the word terrorist? Islamist in this sentence right here. German Christmas market attack suspect is self-described Saudi dissident. We're going to talk a little bit about this guy. At least 2 dead, 60 hurt after just a car. There was no driver. A car drove in to a crowd at the Christmas market. Very peculiar language is being repeated here in regards to this terrorist jihadist attack, and it seems as though we are being desensitized. We're being desensitized from future Islamist, religious inspired terrorist attacks from a particular protected religious group. On Twitter, it's been identified that this is the guy that committed that terrorist attack. This is his personal page on Twitter. Interesting, very peculiar. I think since that attack, more people have been visiting his page. I'll leave it up there for you to see. Abdul Mohsen, Talib al-Abdul Mohsen. According to media outlets, I wonder if any of these have spoken about it. According to the mainstream media outlets, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Bonkers. They think we're stupid. France 24 publication reported the suspect behind German Christmas market attack Islamophobic. If he was Islamophobic, why did he select a Christmas market for his attack? Why not a mosque? You see the stupidity. Something's not right, and it seems as though what's been happening in the UK with the appeasement of the grooming gangs, the soft jihadist, Islamist infiltration, that approach of appeasement is sinister because it seems to be happening again on a global scale. And again, I'm saying this is a part of this new desensitizing agenda of Islamic extremism. The Saudi suspect behind the deadly car attack on a Christmas market, it's quite important to highlight that this has happened before in Germany. I think it was 8 years ago, similar incident, but I believe this time it was a truck that was involved in ramming pedestrians. I'm going to show you an article, it's more like a study paper, regarding using vehicles for terrorist purposes. He said is believed that he was Islamophobic. The interior minister says, so no, this is coming from the German government. The 50-year-old doctor, now under arrest, said German authorities had not done enough to fight the Islamism of Europe and had also voiced support for the far-right and anti-immigrant Alternative for German party. But, however, if you go, let me just check my page for a minute. This is my page. Let me refresh it. I shared a few clips. I'll come to this lady in a minute. Let me scroll down. There are two particular people who are well known and they've got a good record for credibility online. Who knew him, actually knew this guy. And they're saying something far, far different to what we've been told. Let me go back to the first report regarding him. Hold on a minute. Was that the most recent? It's interesting how this narrative that this guy was an ex-Muslim, allegedly, he was Islamophobic, and this attack is a random Islamophobic attack. Does not make sense, does not line up. I think I may have missed it. Let me just show you what two people have said about him, both of them being ex-Muslims, and they're on social media, they have a presence online. One of them is Brother Rashid. Now, you may know him. He used to have his own Arabic channel on cable some years ago. I believe he's obviously still in ministry. Brother Rashid, terrorism expert, advocate for freedom of speech, human rights and religious freedom, former Muslim, now Christian voice in the Arab world, TV host and author. He said, I'm a former Muslim and I closely follow the stories of those who leave Islam. I often connect with them on social media, interview them and explore their reasons for leaving the faith. Over the past 20 years, I have interviewed many ex-Muslims. I reached out twice to him, the guy who perpetrated the jihadist attack in Germany, Christmas market. So Rashid is saying he reached out to this culprit, inviting him to share his story and other topics on camera. However, he declined both times. I typically ask tough questions during my interviews, which makes me wonder why he refused. Each time he cited a temporary medical condition, claiming his face was swollen as the reason he could not appear. Below are direct messages where he rejected my request. One was in 2018 and one in 2020. So this is the guy, right? If you go on his page, Brother Rashid's page, I want to scroll down some more because he made a post about this guy before that. Let's see what he says here. It seems that Talib believed it was acceptable to kill Christians. He even attempted to justify this belief by referencing videos that claimed Jews also consider acceptable to kill Christians, allegedly based on interpretations of the Torah. That's him there. There's all these weird narratives floating around that he was also a supporter of Israel, he was Zionist. I'm like, this is all a cover-up. It's happening in real time. Here are some interesting posts from Talib, the terrorist who carried out the attack at a Christmas market in Germany. Based on his tweets, it seems he was trying to expose alleged wrongdoings by an organization towards asylum seekers. However, his requests for an investigation were dismissed by the police, which appears to have triggered his anger and led to this attack. Totally unhinged him. Remember, a terrorist typically goes through three main phases. Indoctrination. He was indoctrinated throughout his life. Number 2, trigger. His anger toward German authorities became the catalyst. 3, execution. He carried out the attack against civilians in a Christmas market. And he's sharing some posts. I mean, you can all go on his actual page and check out these other sources. There's another post that he made. So Rashid here, Brother Rashid, is talking about somebody he was familiar with. He was acquainted with him, albeit online. What does he say here? No matter the motive. Interesting. He's obviously he was hiding. It's like a dual personality. And people have said this is a a form of taqiyya, which is deception in Islam, which is majority of them who practice this taqiyya, which is deception to further advance Islam, are the Shia, which is what he was. Interesting. Heavily influenced by Islamic doctrines that promote hatred toward Christianity in the West, like many other Muslim refugees, he applied for asylum in Germany, which was granted under the open arms policy. Instead of showing gratitude and working to integrate into society, he grew angry and bitter, and that kind of sums up a lot of these immigrants who come fleeing the Middle East, North Africa, wherever it was they were religiously persecuted, or whatever the reasons were, after war and conflict. They come to the West for safety, and then they turn on the host nation. He betrayed the very people who welcomed him, stabbing them in the back, both figuratively and literally, and attempting to kill as many as he could without mercy. And I've used that word myself. These people, they turn around and they stab you in the back. You can't trust them. This is the mindset of a terrorist, and it's a pattern that has been repeated in Germany multiple times. The only ideology that consistently fosters such hatred toward Christians, and I would say Jews, is Islam, period. He made another post talking about how he knew him. Talib, who carried out the terrorist attack, was indoctrinated in Saudi Arabia as a Shiite. He once confessed that he followed fatwas from his religious leaders that even permitted stealing from Christians. After moving to Germany, he announced that he had become an atheist. Of course, so this, I've become an ex-Muslim, my life is under threat, I'm now a Christian, I'm now an atheist, are just convenient narratives to form a story to get into these host countries in Europe, thinking that they'll be favoured entry. There are two possible explanations for his actions. Okay. I can't show you that footage, it's terrible. The actual footage of what happened. How he drove and rammed in that car into the crowd. Older videos. So he reached out to him. Let me go back to my main page. Yasmin Muhammad. Yasmin Muhammad is an ex-Muslim from Egypt, and she's now in Canada, Canadian. Look what she had to say. She has her own channel on YouTube. She interviews lots of former Muslims, ex-Muslims, reformed Muslims, and a very interesting person. The man who was arrested, she writes, for the most recent terrorist attack on a Christmas market, this time in Magdeburg, Germany, is allegedly Saudi national Talib. I've known him for years, online only, and he never seemed stable to me. He obsessively went after an ex-Muslim Saudi woman. He wanted my help in exposing her and turned aggressive when I wouldn't comply. The guy's meant to be a doctor. Does this sound like a rational, stable-minded person, individual, let alone being a doctor? Dangerous. He wanted my help in exposing her and turned aggressive when I wouldn't comply. Friends have shared with me that he was targeting other Saudi female activists as well. I still can't believe this is real. I knew he was unhinged and I wanted to keep my distance. So she obviously knew that this is a guy you best keep your distance from because he's very erratic, very suspicious behavior. But I never suspected he'd be violent. There is suspicion now that he was actually working with Saudi authorities to bring down Saudi female activists. And although I cannot confirm this, obviously I will say that this theory aligns with my experience and exchanges with him. This is a tragedy on top of tragedy on top of a tragedy. This will now make it harder for ex-Muslims to seek asylum in the EU, genuine ex-Muslims, or anywhere probably. It will also feed the racist narrative that all Arabs are terrorists, which is fair point, because you can't label them all as the one and the same thing, regardless of their faith, which I've already seen gaining predictable traction. The epicenter of this is the tragedy of the families of those killed and the trauma the survivors and the families will endure, of course. But even the far-reaching ripple effects of this will continue to cause devastation for so many. So people who were familiar, who interacted with him online, are saying that basically the narrative that we're being told, example, he was Islamophobic, does not line up. So the mainstream media are portraying him to be something else. In light, God said, Jewish Iranian writes, in light of the attack today on Christmas market in Germany, let's stand together and say no to Islamophobia. His sarcasm is hilarious. The 45,000 plus Islamic terror attacks committed since 9/11 alone in nearly 70 countries have nothing to do with Islam. Maria Nofel is quite prominent on X. It's a lot that he shares. I won't go into all that because I'll get left behind on my own thing that I want to share here with you. But if we take a look at the bigger picture, which is what I like to do, I've got to stop and pause, zoom out and just think, what's going on here? What's the narrative? What are we being told? We're being told, number one, there's no religious affiliation to this guy. He's an atheist. He's an ex-Muslim. He's a Saudi dissident. He just happened to randomly target Christians at a Christian market, Christmas market in Germany, randomly, with such venom, such hatred, such force. If you see the actual footage, literally rammed at speed through the crowd and went around to do it again. Islamist terrorist attacks in the world. Do I have the article actually opened? There is a common denominator here, and I, for one, I'm not fooled by the mainstream narrative. I'm not fooled by it 1 minute, not 1 minute. Islamist terrorist attacks in the world between 1979 to 2024 in the present time. This is a study paper. Let's go through this a little bit. Between 79 and 2024, we recorded over 66,500 Islamist attacks worldwide. These attacks caused the deaths of at least, look at that number, almost 250,000 people. Guaranteed it's a lot more than that. Islamist attacks around the world are more numerous today than ever before. It's on the rise. So we look at our governments, the national newspapers, mainstream media, and how they are now beginning to report on jihadist, terrorist, Islamist attacks. You're beginning to notice the pattern. They're beginning to desensitize us to it. Make heroes out of Hamas and Hezbollah. The resisted fighters, glory to the martyrs and all that kind of nonsense. Because that money that funds universities in the West, primarily coming from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Arabian Islamic money to indoctrinate the young minds who are going to be the future generation. Do you see where all this is going? In order to prepare the world on a global scale to actually receive and welcome and celebrate the rise of the beast. That's the ultimate goal here. So we have to ask ourselves, are our governments complicit? Because this is beyond a joke now at this point. They're not naive. It's not lack of discernment. It's not lack of intelligence. These people know what they're doing. I hate to tell you that. We can't trust anybody. There's no one government that we can trust. Always question everything they're telling us. And these media outlets, the mainstream media, who are in the pockets of these politicians and governments, can't trust them. So we're being deceived on a mass global scale and expect to see more of this while, this is the irony, while the attacks go up and they increase, we're being told it's not religious, it's just a handful of crazy radicals. They've got a just cause. Perhaps we can expect to see reports about that. Well, do we actually understand what their grievances are? Should we perhaps take them seriously? And all this appeasement language, well, maybe the people deserved it, you know. It's on the rise. On average, an Islamist attack caused the deaths of 3.7 people. Firearms were the most used weapons, followed closely by explosives, melee weapons such as knives or machetes, and incendiary weapons. These are really interesting papers that have been put together. They're just talking about facts, figures and numbers. The Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 96% of Islamist attacks between 1979 and to the current time. But it's not just confined to the Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, is it? It's growing now in the West. Within the European Union, France was the country most affected by Islamist terrorism, with 85 attacks committed on its soil between 1979 and 2024. At least 334 people were killed in these attacks. But the governments of these nations turn around and appease those who perpetrate by, promoting this idea that we need to crack down on Islamophobic attacks, where you think about right now, the current climate, attacks on Jews around the world has skyrocketed. I mean, just take a look at Canada at the minute. We've never seen such violent anti-Semitism as we're seeing today. I mean, unless we're talking about the Holocaust. So we're in a time now where we could say history is repeating itself, but it's worse now than it was during the time of the Holocaust. That indoctrination, coupled with Christian anti-Jewish anti-Semitism. So we're not in a good place right now. You see what I'm saying? We're not going to be until the Lord returns. But I also want to remind you, when I say things like this is not good, this is bad, it's going to get worse, I want you to be mindful. I'm talking about where things are headed before the return of the Lord. There are still people preaching the gospel. Souls are being saved. I mean, if you just browse on YouTube and just look at the numbers of testimonials that are coming out lately, there's a growth. I mean, we could say, is there a revival indeed? Because there are people, friends, who are so far gone from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, whatever religious affiliation they were from, they're coming to faith in Christ in the millions. So there is light and it is shining in the darkness. But let us not be deceived by thinking, well, it's not so bad right now. The Lord's return is way, way off in the future. It's not as bad as we think it is. No, I'm telling you, it's bad. And it's going to get worse. Afghanistan was the country most affected by Islamist terrorism. Right. The USA and Russia have also been hit by jihadis. I mean, there's not one place in our world that Islamist terrorists haven't attacked. You see what I'm saying? It's literally global. And this is a precursor to what it's going to look like when the beast is finally formed with the coalition of 10 world leaders. I say world leaders casually, but what I'm saying is 10 leaders who are going to give their recently given acknowledgement by the beast, the Antichrist, their power, their authority to the beast as a coalition. Now, another paper, but well, before I go there, I'm going to come back to that. In the UK, this is what I was saying, how the UK is not only desensitizing the people, but they're preparing them. They're actually conditioning the people to accept these kind of attacks, these kinds of terrorist incidents as your common thing. Nothing to see here. The Spectator reported, and you may have heard about it, anyone outraged by the Labour MP Tahir Ali calling on the government to introduce blasphemy laws has clearly not been paying attention. But there are people paying attention. And those who are paying attention are alarmed, myself included, how quickly this thing is happening. Very quick. For there are already blasphemy laws in the country. Yeah, the UK's already had blasphemy laws. They're very old. However, all Ali wants to do is make them official. When he urges Keir Starmer to prohibit the desecration of the Quran and other Abrahamic religious texts, they have to say that. They've got to throw that in there, which means the Torah, the Bible. But what they mean is the desecration of the Quran. That's what they mean. As he did at Prime Minister's questions, he will be aware that people are already punished for desecrating the Muslim holy book, including children. So, here's that guy again, reported last month. There's some news channels on the internet. You can look up Talk TV from the UK. GB News, they talked about this. So these Islamists who are in government, Muslim Brotherhood style, apparently don't believe in democracy, of the rule of man. They only believe in the law of Allah, are actually in government, in democracy, democratic institutions, for the sole purpose to change them to the Sharia. That's the reason why they're there. They're all a part of a bigger picture, which is the global takeover of Islam. That's what they desire to do. It's not paranoia. This is what they say they want to do. Alright, for some of you who just think I'm talking nonsense, there's the page. Now, I want you to listen to this. Let me refresh that. Let me play it. This is taken from memory, and it's a recent clip. This is in New Jersey, Clifton. Mosque discussion of hadith describing the end of times battle between Jews and Muslims. How can we get away from this? They say it blatantly out in the open. But yet when I am addressing the fact that this is what they want, and they tell us this is what they want, and I also said the word of God, the Bible, has warned us about this. It's called the Antichrist. And yet you'll accuse me of being Islamophobic. Your own people are declaring this out in the open. I just happen to take them at their word. When Jews will try to hide behind rocks and trees, Sheikh Osama Salha yearns for the liberation of Jerusalem from the filth of Zionism. The whole world should be led by a caliph. Can we play this yet? Let's try again. Alright, I'm going to play this. Let me see if my volume is loud.
The victory in Syria is our victory. And inshallah, when we see the liberation of Bayt al-Maqdis and Jerusalem, from Danas al-Sahayna and the filth of Zionism, it is going to be our victory collectively. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla allows us to see that.
Yeah, the Ummah of Muhammad has no boundaries. My vision is very expansive. If Allah would allow it, I want to see the whole world in the Ummah of Muhammad I want to see the whole world led by just Khalifa.
The whole world, right?
And there's no shame in saying this. The famous hadith quoted by one of the groups in Palestine, that at the end of time there will be a battle between the Muslims and people of the Jewish faith, and the Jews will be hiding behind rock and trees, and the trees and the rocks will tell on them. Do you want to say anything more about that, Shaykh?
Notice that he's a little hesitant because they clocked on that people are watching and listening to what they're saying now. So they're trying to, they're being careful now to a degree.
The only thing I'll say is I was never able to process this hadith until I saw a year of Gaza.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I will say though that these hadith, the ulama always say they're descriptive, not prescriptive, meaning they describe a reality that will clearly pay out. Don't try to force that reality onto today's world. It's very possible that the Zionist entity will go and Islam will flourish again, and then there'll be some other battle that comes. Because this hadith was made popular because one of the groups in Palestine used it in their initial charter. Our struggle is to live in the moment and to struggle to be righteous and beloved to Allah and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us. And then if Allah brings that miracle out and you live to see it, you'll know that the hadith finally came true. Anything you want to correct from what I said, Shaykh?
No.
Yeah.
So it's the hadith that they're anticipating is finally going to come to pass. I'm in the book of Revelation. Okay, hold on. I'll come back to that in a second. There's something I want to show you from that. So the blasphemy laws. Let's go back to this dude here. Islamophobia laws would be disastrous for Britain. Well, duh, obviously. Because what are you saying? You're succumbing and you're subjecting your nation, your country, your culture to Islam. And it is almost like history repeating itself. Because remember the invasion of the Islamic armies? They did come into the West. They went as far as Spain. So it's like we're kind of coming back full circle. So the Labour MP asked Starmer whether the government would commit to introducing measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts. But he's talking about Islam. Trust me, that's what he's talking about. Both the question and the Prime Minister's response have already attracted a great deal of attention and criticism. But of perhaps overlooked significance is the way in which the question was introduced with reference to Islamophobia Awareness Month. Obviously, it's about cracking down on criticism of Islam and their prophet. That's all it's about. I said this was going to happen some time ago now, and I spoke to you about how Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, was the one who was pushing this at the United Nations, and he got what he wanted. Blasphemy laws and Islamophobia awareness. Critics of both the term Islamophobia and its proposed definitions have long warned that it could amount to a backdoor blasphemy law. In response, they are frequently met with scorn, derision, allegations of Islamophobia, which you'd think rather proves their misgivings. I know, it's ironic. Now, however, the connection between Islamophobia and an outright proposal for blasphemy laws has been made aloud and occurs shortly after the case of Samuel Paty, the French teacher who was murdered for allegedly showing his class cartoons of Muhammad, has re-entered the news cycle. That is because the schoolgirl who originally whipped up the allegations of Islamophobia, attracting the attention of local Islamist preachers and subsequently a jihadist blade, has now admitted she made it up. An allegation of Islamophobia is not simply to be accused of being discriminatory or bigoted toward human beings. It's to be accused of being against Islam, making it a short leap to the sometimes fatal allegation of blasphemy, which is what they do in Pakistan, which is what they've been doing in Pakistan, and they currently still do today. The person who's been victimized of this could be completely innocent, and yet the crowd, the public, the mob mentality that they have in these communities in Pakistan just merely have to make a random accusation, even though it's false, and the person is attacked, persecuted, and a lot of the times murdered by the religious community. If the legal system or the courts in the country don't deal with it, the people will. So they're already bringing their backward Islamic inspired blasphemy style laws into Britain. Wherever these people are, they want to enforce it. That's why they're here. I often hear in the comment sections, I'll read comments from people like, I don't understand why they're in the West. If they hate everything about the West, why don't they go back where they came from? Number one, a lot of these people are British born or born in these host nations. Number two, the reason why they immigrated to the West is to change the West. And number three, there's a minority who fled these countries, sought refuge, and are just getting along with their lives, want to be left alone. They want to integrate. But they're a minority, you guys. We're talking about a minority of the minority from the Muslim Islamic world who want to integrate. Vast majority of them are here to change the status quo. Right. Let me move on. Wall Street Journal. Keep blasphemy laws out of the UK. This was in 2023. Brits are deferring too much to Muslim extremists' radical sense of offence. The headline says it all. Don't need to go into the article. But people who are wise, who've got their wits about them, who are not asleep, they're fully awake, they can see where this is all going. So it really is a good time now to, it's always been a good time, but to tell people that the Lord Jesus is returning soon. And what's happening is that we're seeing a movement, a religious movement growing, picking up momentum in our world to challenge the return of Jesus, believe it or not. The Antichrist beast is an outright, blatant offensive against Jesus Christ. And it's full of blasphemy. One of the main criteria of the beast system is its blasphemy. And Islam is the greatest blasphemy to Christ. Britain, long the world's leading exporter of enlightenment values such as free speech and religious coexistence, now risks becoming a leading importer of Islamic blasphemy outrage. As the UK has worked to integrate immigrants from Pakistan, British culture has too often deferred to radical views on blasphemy, following activists to impose the de facto blasphemy laws. White House. White House announces strategy action plan to counter Islamophobia. After October the 7th, that was the first thing that Kamala Harris was worried about, wasn't it? This is recent, by the way. A couple of days ago. The Biden administration earlier this month unveiled a 60-page national strategy to counter Islamophobia and anti-Arab hate. The first ever US initiative of its kind. Why now? What's going on? They're preparing for the Antichrist, and they want the people to prepare, desensitize them, get them used to it. Condition. It's all about conditioning, right? Similar to what's happening right now with the drones. These sightings of the drones everywhere. The strategy includes more than 100 new government-led actions to counter the growing danger that Islamophobia poses to religious liberty. He's doing it now because this administration is out, on its way out. I wonder what Trump will do about it. As the White House rightly noted, Islamophobia is a threat that impacts the freedom of all Americans and requires nationwide vigilance and actions. How about we reword this and then it will make sense? You know what this ought to say? This is what it ought to say. As the White House rightly noted, Islamic terrorism is a threat that impacts the freedom of all Americans and requires nationwide vigilance and action. That's what that should have said. But it's the complete opposite. It's the Islamophobia that's the problem. Narcissism on a global scale. Can you believe it? The strategy emphasizes that a threat to one American community is a threat to all and to our democratic system. These idiots, who I don't think are idiots, they know what they're doing, have the democratic system abused to the max by those who seek to overthrow it. The Muslim Brotherhood said they would do this years ago. They had it written in the manifesto that by your democratic system we will come in and overthrow you because you've made it easy for us to do it that way without firing a rocket. Hatred of Arabs and Muslims erodes our democracy by spreading manipulative falsehoods, encouraging people to act based on fear instead of fact, promoting prejudice and dehumanization. You know, these facts and promoting prejudice and dehumanization, that all these fact checkers, they want us to talk about how to simply deal with facts. Well, we do. We talk about the facts. I talk about facts, not hearsay. I show you the sources, primary sources, and apparently we're not allowed to do that now. Why is that? Think, friends. It's not a coincidence. You see, this conditioning or this desensitizing is all working for the advancement of Islam. When 9/11 happened, that was when this Islamophobia word started gaining prominence. We don't want to accuse the perpetrators. No, we want to protect those who, because of what the perpetrators did, are now being targeted. So they are now our priority. Somebody make that make sense. It doesn't. Promoting prejudice, dehumanization, discouraging active citizenship, and driving people toward authoritarianism. That's Islam. This topsy-turvy, inside-out, upside-down world is designed to throw us off God, to desensitize, to condition us, brainwash us. In short, Islamophobia and hate against Arabs impact everyone. What's with this association with Arabs? All Muslims are not Arabs, are they? They're Pakistani, they're Indonesian, they're Turks, they're Iranians. They're trying to associate this with Arabs, which is false, which is ridiculous. All Americans have ample reason to join the effort to counter these forms of hate. La la la. Let's read this bit here. Action items are organized into 4 strategic priorities. Increase awareness of hatred against... These are the new special protected people. So you can get away with terror, literally terrorizing people, to death and then killing them, and you get rewarded for it. This is the best way to deal with jihad. Rather than fight back, we're going to just bend over, bow down, and say, yep, we'll become your doormats. Broaden recognition of this community's heritages. So they're going to get a boost in promotion. Improve safety and security for Muslims and Arabs. So all their mosques and religious communities are provided with top-notch security. Tackle discrimination and bias against Muslims and Arabs and appropriately accommodate their religious practices. Again, this is ludicrous. Continue to build cross-community solidarity and collective action to counter hate. All grooming. This is grooming everyone to welcome the beast. So we say, is it going to be worldwide? The Antichrist beast? Well, we know the epicenter or the capital city region, the heart of the beast empire, will be Turkey, Iraq, Syria, with a coalition of nations from the Islamic world that would join in the and give their allegiance to the actual man of sin. But globally, like I've said, wherever the followers are, that's where the beast will have impact, which is everywhere. Holding nations, communities, cultures hostage, literally. So these people will go around persecuting, committing terrorist acts, jihad, and they'll be protected for doing it. Fancy that. Let's move on. Let me show you what I was talking about regarding International Day to Combat Islamophobia, 15th of March. Thanks, courtesy of Imran Khan. The United Nations website observances Anti-Islamophobia Day. What is Islamophobia? Islamophobia is fear, prejudice, hatred of Muslims that leads to provocation, hostility, intolerance by means of threatening, harassment, abuse, incitement, intimidation, which is the things that they do. You see? The projection. Now, let me just preface this by saying I'm not denying that there have been attacks against Muslim communities or Muslim peoples. But to fan the flames of this widening suspicion that people everywhere now are beginning to have with the people of the Muslim Islamic faith needs to be considered seriously. The rational phobia that they have. Motivated by institutional, ideological, political, religious hostility, which is Islam. Projection. This is ridiculous. That transcends into structural and cultural racism. It targets the symbols and markers of being a Muslim, markers of being Christian. So they're projecting everything that they do to the Jews, to the Christians, to everyone who's non-Muslim, and they're accusing the victim of perpetrating. This is your narcissism, like I've been saying. If you understand it, then you see it, and it's easy to identify. So United Nations have got a day. They're going to crack down hate speech and violence online and offline, which is Great Britain for you at the moment. Lack of policies to promote diversity, so you're going to have to recruit these people, get them involved in your communities, where the trust in this community, in this particular religious community, is diminishing. They want us to begin to ignore that and just go against your own values, your own awareness, your own intellect. Go against that and just welcome them. Open your arms to them. Welcome them. This is so sickening, you guys. Antonio, whatever his name is, Guterres, has got a lot to answer for. Many governments have taken steps to combat Islamophobia by establishing anti-hate crime legislation. So this is the United Nations. Makes sense now why they have this unbalanced grossly unbalanced approach in responding to Israel and what Israel has to deal with. Literally, friends, the whole world is turning against us. The systems of this world are turning against Israel, and they're turning against the Christians. The system is being set up. Here you go. Let me read this. I've got a little bit more to get through. Imran Khan, Prime Minister at the time, calls for effective measures to counter hate speech and Islamophobia. Prime Minister today, this was at the time, 2019, he speaks in New York at the UN, countering hate speech and Islamophobia. This was Imran Khan, noting the growing incidence of discrimination and violence based on religion and belief. The Prime Minister underscored the importance of addressing both the drivers and consequences of this phenomena. When you're going around blowing and targeting innocent civilians, whoever they are, you're killing them. You're literally terrorizing them because that's what your religion has indoctrinated you to do. And when those people speak out on behalf of the victims, you're going to say that they're Islamophobic. It's almost like narcissism describes Islam to a T. Imran Khan rejected attempts to equate Islam with terrorism, of course, naturally, right? Noting that such self-serving approaches were dangerous and therefore should be eschewed. Imran Khan underlined that the United Nations provided an important platform to evolve an informed discourse on countering these phenomena, noting the need for more efforts by Muslim leaders to explain why attempts to denigrate revered Muslim personalities, especially Muhammad, caused pain and offense to billions of Muslims. Jihadists, Islamists, cause pain and offense and terror to so many Christians, millions of them, across the world, and non-Muslims. How about you take responsibility and do something to reform Islam? Of course not. You see, the Reformation in Islam, and I know there are those people out there, these personalities, who are genuinely seeking to reform Islam. What world are you living in? It's a noble endeavor, but it's not going to happen ever. You might have a little community, a little pocket of people who are reformists in the Islamic world. You're not going to survive very long. Because the Reformation of Islam is jihad. The Reformation of Islam is the Khilafah. That is your Reformation. And it's growing amongst the younger generation. There are those in the older communities in the Islamic world who are like, I've lived this my entire life. It's never produced anything good. And yet the younger generation are all for it. The Prime Minister also called for promoting greater understanding and tolerance among and between communities across the world. Erdogan of Turkey also spoke at the occasion. Among other things, the president echoed the concerns and called for balance between exercising the right to freedom of expression and freedom of religion. Think about this. This was in 2019. Look where we are today. Imran Khan's banged up in prison, causing an absolute meltdown of the nation in Pakistan, because there are those who completely won over by his personality, by his so-called, it's just a bizarre mix of democracy and religious politics represented by Imran Khan. He's got the nation fighting his battles because they want to get him out of behind bars. And you've got Erdogan today, who's literally invading a sovereign country. And many countries he's overthrowing subtly, cunningly. Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Armenia, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. Their tentacles are everywhere. Erdogan also expressed his concern of the situation in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which is affecting Pakistan. His call for a just solution of this long-standing dispute. So they had this in common, right? It's the Brotherhood. It's the Islamic Brotherhood. The High Representative of the UN Alliance for Civilizations drew attention to existence of conflicts and disputes that lay at some of these phenomena and called for addressing them. He also commended Pakistan for hosting the important event. The event was co-hosted by Pakistan and Turkey, 2019. And this is him at that time. The following year, 2020, Imran Khan of Pakistan warns of rising Islamophobia, not rising Islamic jihadist terrorism around the world, and how the Ummah needs to collectively address it. No, you'll never hear a Muslim leader from any of these countries taking that seriously. So that was him then. Meanwhile, this Gatestone Institute report was out in February earlier this year. So imagine the numbers now. Lord have mercy. More than 365 million Christians face genocide. And since then, how many have actually been genocided against? The Lord knows. Except for North Korea, where the persecution is caused by dictatorial paranoia, communist and post-communist oppression, the main religion of all other countries and groups on the list is Islam. That's a fact. Not this fabricated phenomena called Islamophobia, made up nonsense, projection. The perpetrator is guilty of being the main persecutor of Christians around the world. The number one. While some relief aid is available, this is mostly distributed through local Muslim groups and mosques, which are alleged to be discriminating against anyone not considered a devout Muslim. Open Doors in Yemen. Open Doors is a Christian charity who works with persecuted Christians. More believers are killed for their faith in Nigeria each year than everywhere else in the world combined. For Christians who convert from Islam, not even the veneer of tolerance is present. Iran. When the Taliban came to power, they did so with pledges to recognize more freedoms than in the past, just like what's happening right now with Giuliani. That's what he's saying right now in Syria. Is there any credibility to prove that perhaps we should give him the benefit of the doubt? Absolutely not. But that hasn't happened. If an Afghan's Christian faith is discovered, it can be death sentence. Why is that? Christian phobia, Jewish phobia. You see, these are the facts that we see, we observe, we are aware of. We see it happen in real time. But they want us to believe the Jews are running the world. They want to usher in a one world government, control over everybody, that they are the number one terrorist nations, the USA and Israel. But it's them doing it. Expanding their borders, taking over other people's lands, cultures, history, demographics. They literally take over, destroy, and they set up their domes and their minarets. These are the perpetrators claiming victimhood. Disgusting, disgraceful. Over 34.5 million displaced people. I mean, these numbers are staggering. Displaced people across sub-Saharan Africa, around 16.2 million are Christians. Many of these incidents remain unreported by the mainstream media. So the mainstream media is a media outlet for Islam. Because they're all in on it, you see. It's all about the money. As long as they get what they've been promised, they don't care. And until the mainstream media, governments and international organizations, it is the mainstream media, the governments and international organizations who are helping this grow. They're aiding and abetting it. So until they do it, which is never going to happen, start openly addressing the ideological, theological motives of the perpetrators, which is religious. Unless they start openly addressing the ideological, theological motives of the perpetrators. This worldwide, genocide level persecution of Christians will likely increase. I guarantee you that is where it's going. It's not stopped, it's grown, and it continues to grow. But we're going to be told that they need to crack down on Islamophobia. We need to protect the Muslims. We need to protect the perpetrators. Western Europe's Muslim problem. Everyone's having a Muslim problem, but we're not allowed to say it, you see. We have to not say that, and we've got to just turn the other cheek. Good Christian liberal West, turn the other cheek. Be kind to your neighbour, love on them, because that's how you win, right? Give them more money, give them housing, accommodate them, provide them with the halal food at their schools, at their colleges, at the hospitals, wherever they work. Accommodate them with prayer rooms, prayer mats, allow them to dress however they want to dress, speak however they want to speak, go wherever they want to go. We need to accommodate them, because this is how we fight jihad. It makes sense, doesn't it? In La La Land, we're no longer going to be able to say this. Muslim migrants arrived in the industrialized Western, civilized European states after World War II, many from the countries that were formerly colonial possessions. The streets of major Western European cities are occupied territories. I don't need to read much. You get the point, right? The people, like I've said before, the very ones who keep accusing Israel of being settler colonialists, occupiers, are the ones who are doing it themselves. It's so simple. If you can't see it, I don't know what to say to help you see it. Fifi, my darling, my cat wants my attention. Come here, my love. Oh, love you, darling. Radical Muslim gangs who harbour hatred for Western culture is so obvious. Even the moderate, the younger generation, my family included, believe Islam is the answer for all, but a visceral and violent anti-Semitic hatred for Israel and Jews. And that is the truth. That is a fact. Are we allowed to say it? The pogrom perpetrated by Arab and Turkish Muslims against Israeli and Jewish fans of the Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer team in Amsterdam earlier this month, remember that? Illustrates the point. And the point is further illustrated repeatedly over and over again across the West, not just the West, across the world. This phenomena is happening. So you can count the time, check the calendar, check the clock. How long do we have until the Lord returns? I want to go back to this report now. Let me show you something. Let me go back to this. Let's refresh the news. The Christmas market attack in Germany. Why did he use a car? You know, using a vehicle is becoming very popular now because it causes a lot of damage and you can get more people and you basically cause more damage. After man drives into German Christmas market after terrorist attacked civilians by driving his vehicle into a crowd. I reworded that. Somebody transweb.sjsu.education. It's about terrorism. Did a paper on just this one thing. An analysis of vehicle ramming as a terrorist tactic is growing. This is in 2018. Car ramming attacks. It's important. Let's read it. Or vehicular assaults in which drivers deliberately plough their vehicles into public gatherings, pedestrians or bicyclists, have become an increasingly common terrorist tactic. Have you noticed a common theme? Increasingly common. So for all these strategies and policies that our governments are telling us that they want to put in place to protect Muslims, because they think by protecting them, acts of Islamic terrorism will go down, think that we are stupid to believe it. Bible prophecy teachers like myself, Joe Richardson, Waleed, could have told you years ago, and we did, that it's going to get worse. And with the support of money coming from these filthy rich Arab countries, it's not going to stop, is it? Because what they're doing is that they're funding the indoctrination side of things. Going after the younger generation. The numbers are still small, but they are clearly on the rise. A review of this tactic and recent uses of it leads to a number of observations. I don't know if you remember in one of my videos, or was it that I spoke to somebody in person at the church? I was just saying, be careful, because I believe this is going to be something that we're going to see happen more often. Literally cars, vehicles, whatever equipment, mechanical vehicle that they can use, they will use it. They will do it. And as you will find, as we go through this paper, how long would this video be by the time I'm done with it? I think it's important though. I think we should go through this. Excuse me. As you will find, as we go through this paper, all the people that have been using this tactic are Islamic jihadists. Unless I'm wrong, please correct me. The number of car ramming attacks and their lethality are increasing. These attacks reflect the current practice of terrorists remotely inspiring operatives rather than recruiting them. They also, the copycat thing. God forbid, copycat incidents. If they do it, I'm going to do it. It's very effective. That's a great idea. Yeah, why not? They also reflect the trend towards totally random violence, what might be called pure terrorism. The weapon, a motor vehicle, is easily obtainable, and a ramming attack requires little preparation and little skill. Car ramming is effective, allowing attackers to achieve high body counts and cause widespread alarm. This is what we just witnessed in Germany. It is one tactic whose lethality in the developed world comes close to that of attacks in the developing world, which normally have much higher levels of lethality. Attackers proclaiming allegiance to jihadist groups are more lethal than others, again a reflection of ideology and strategy. As is the case with airline hijackings in the 1960s, many of the attackers turn out to be mentally disordered persons who may be inspired to copy terrorist attacks. The deadliest car ramming incidents occur where vehicles mow down pedestrians at public gatherings such as open-air markets or on pedestrianised streets from which cars are prohibited but nevertheless can enter. If this guy who perpetrated the attack was Islamophobic, why did he wait until there was a Christmas market to do that? It's just stupid. The media think we're that stupid, and the German government. If he was Islamophobic, why didn't he go charging into these pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protesters? Huh. But I fear that this could set a trend now. It's already trending, but it's been happening slowly, gradually. But we might just see a spike. Open-air market celebrations attract crowds, and foot traffic on pedestrian streets is usually dense. This makes these venues lucrative targets for vehicular assaults. It's a long document. I don't think I should go through the whole thing, but I will attach this for your further reading. The basic terrorist repertoire, bombings, armed assaults, assassinations, hostage-taking, remains close to what it was in the early 70s. Over time, heightened security measures have reduced certain tactics and attacks on certain target sets. Like conventional airplane hijackings is not likely now. Terrorists have always preferred soft targets where they do not have to overcome security measures, just like they do in Israel. You see, whatever Israel's been dealing with for these several decades is what they've been warning the West. If you don't help us fight this, you're going to deal with it eventually. And the West is just like, they want to accuse Israel. Ceasefire, Israel. Back down. Back away. Give them more land for peace. Yeah, that will work. Since unprotected targets are virtually unlimited, there's little pressure for terrorist innovation in tactics or weapons. Anyway, let's just go through some of the paragraphs. Big changes in terrorist strategies and recruiting. So they escalated their attacks in that year. And the year of 9/11, tens of hundreds to thousands. So that just boosted their terrorism. Extrapolating from the 9/11 attacks led authorities to worry about future events that could produce tens of hundreds of thousands of casualties. Attacks of this scale could be achieved only with weapons of mass destruction. Terrorism has not followed the anticipated post-9/11 trajectory, which is what they're ideally aiming for. Following 9/11 attacks, Al-Qaeda was put under enormous pressure. Many of its leaders and key operatives were killed or captured. Scroll on. However, the political turmoil that spread across North Africa and Middle East in 2011 presented the jihadists with new opportunities, which Al-Qaeda was quick to exploit. Its comeback, however, has disrupted by a deadly internal schism that saw the emergence of a rival jihadist enterprise in Syria and Iraq, the Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Israel, or ISIS. ISIS took advantage of the civil war in Syria, so this is giving a very good background as to why is it gaining in popularity. What methods have jihadists used so far, and what has proven to be more effective? The campaign in France and Belgium was unique. The terrorist attacks carried out by ISIS-affiliated operatives in France and Belgium between 2014-2016 have been cited as an example of an ISIS-directed campaign. Car ramming attacks reflect current circumstances. Both Al-Qaeda and ISIS have urged the use of vehicles to mow down pedestrians. You know how badly terrorizing that is for those who are present. Absolutely horrific trauma. So while they still accuse Israel of committing trauma, terrorism against the Palestinians, blah, 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 when they're actually defending themselves and responding to being attacked, we're going to see this grow. And they're going to use that as a justification. They're going to use the Israel thing as justification. US, Israel involvement in the Middle East, North Africa, wherever the Muslims are, as justification. Islamophobic attacks as justification. Is an ideal tactic for today's circumstances. Vehicles are a readily available weapon. Limited skills required. So this is more dangerous than your average gun, airplane hijacking, suicide bombing, knife attacks kind of terrorism, right? This is more concerning. I mean, super concerning. A car can be rammed in how many places? Anywhere, everywhere. On the ground where pedestrians are, right? Car rammings occur almost every day. Most of these are not vehicle assaults by terrorists, but rather rammings by criminals, drunk drivers, overcome by road rage. So they're saying that it does happen, but not as often. The drivers deliberately crash into others' cars, try to run over antagonists, and increasingly try to ram police cars. We exclude these from our analysis. They're literally just doing a report on terrorist atrocities committed by these jihadists using vehicles. Now, let me scroll down some more. I'm on page 5 now, so we've gone through quite a bit. Overall trends, more frequent and more lethal. The 78 attacks occurred between 1973 and the end of April 2018. My goodness. I wonder if these people have done an update on their research. They resulted in 281 deaths and approximately 1,200 injuries. Over time. Whoa, look at that. Interesting, this happened during the time 2013, 2015, 2017 when ISIS came out, right? Massive surge. Coincidence? What did the Islamic State want? They want an Islamic State, but only in Iraq and Syria and the Levant, apparently. Interestingly, a lot of the people, the fighters from Britain went over to join ISIS. What, to fight a caliphate for just that region? And then they come back home? No, it's a bigger picture, it's a bigger goal. It always has been. Ramming vehicle lethality over time. Everything's going up, on the increase. Death toll on the increase. Geographic distribution of car ramming attacks. All Israel and occupied territories, developed countries, developing countries. Interesting. 2013, 2018. So we're looking at these numbers here. You can see obviously it's been on the increase. However, the number of attacks occurring in developed countries, the West, has been increasing. Since 2003, 41 attacks have occurred in economically more advanced nations. The US leads this list with a total of 13 attacks, followed by France with 10 and the United Kingdom with 5. Fatalities have gone up, 281 there. 2017, okay. Let's scroll along. Several factors make it difficult to determine whether a vehicular attacker is more apt to be suicidal than attackers using other modes. Whatever their mental state is, it's lethal and it's being used, and it's on the rise. Who are the attackers? Using the limited information available to us, we created 11 different attacker groups. 11. Including jihadist, confirmed or highly likely. Jihadist, possible. Mentally disordered, confirmed or highly likely, and mentally disordered, possible. The numbers and lethality of attacks by these groups are shown in Table 7. Let's just go through them. You can look at the numbers to the right as I read them. Jihadist, confirmed or highly likely. Fatalities 133, 8 attacks. FPA was the fatalities per attack, 16.6. Jihadist, possible. What's down here? 17 mentally disordered individuals. Probably what they're going to say about this guy who's claimed to be Islamophobic. So ridiculous. Fatalities 33. Palestinian group, non-jihadist, 11. 2.2. Right-wing extremist individuals or groups. They got them listed here. 19 fatalities, 8 attacks. Tamil, like the Tamil Tigers, 1. Irish, unknown motive, summary. We then placed these groups in 4 main attacker categories. Those associated with the Palestinian cause. Well, can't ignore that, can we? The main motivating element to these terrorist jihadist attacks is the Palestinian campaign. The pro-Palestinian campaign, because they all show solidarity with that, right? Liberating Al-Quds. Those motivated by jihadist ideologies, right-wing, mentally disordered, Let's read this and then I can read the summary. Palestinian attackers who frequently attacked pedestrians and soldiers awaiting at a bus stop account for 27% of the 78 cases. At the same time, the Palestinians have the lowest average fatalities per attack. Jihadists, both confirmed and probable, were responsible for 13 attacks. So they trump it, right? They're right at the top. Of which 12 took place after 2013. They were the most lethal attackers with an average of FPA of 10, so they had more people killed. Right-wing extremists, including anti-abortion extremists, carried out only 8 attacks. One of these, however, was particularly deadly, increasing the overall average FPA for this category to 2.4. Percentage of suicide attacks, right? Jihadist, mentally disordered, Palestinian, and 1 right wing. Venues and targets: public streets with vehicular access, public gatherings, public buildings. That's what I mean. That's the likelihood where these incidences can happen easily. Outdoor markets, celebrations, gatherings. Public buildings, including restaurants, shopping malls, tourist sites. Excuse me. Public streets, bus stations, public streets. Religious institutions, bus stops, buses. My goodness. Mitigation methods. Well, they did have some form of mitigation outside the Christmas market in Germany, but the barriers were easily penetrated. So, wasn't very effective. Armed police presence was there, increased surveillance that was there, pedestrian barriers was there, traffic obstructions. All of these were present at the German market. So they were ineffective. So what's their solution? Technological solutions. Various electronic means for remotely shutting down vehicles exist and could possibly be employed. That's too in the future. These are ideas being discussed, not a catalogue or proven countermeasures. Anyhow. When we read in the Word of God in the book of Revelation, let's go back. Let's remind ourselves that this is a system that is being formed before the man of sin is revealed. Like I said, the Antichrist is not going to just happen overnight within the 24-hour clock system. It's been happening over decades until we reach the point where, according to the timing, according to the perfect will of God, because he's ultimately in charge, when the dragon is going to be cast out and then inhabit the man of sin and the false prophet. So it's like everything is being prepared for that time, right? Until we get to this stage. If you read this portion, you notice that the dragon, because he's the one in charge of the beast, gives the beast the power, the throne, and great authority. And when this mortal wound is healed, one of the heads, I think myself, Joel, and Waleed, I don't know about Waleed's position right now, but we generally point to a Turkic revived Khalifa and Caliphate. But I'm like more, it's coming out from this region, specifically Turkey, Iraq, Syria. However that looks, will it be a Turkic invasion of those regions, gaining more territory? Looks like it. It does look like that's what's going to happen. The world marveled and followed the beast. So the world is preparing to receive this guy, celebrate him, follow him, and take orders from him. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast. The religious aspect can't be played down here. It's not just an economic military system and a political system, it's religious. I mean, the Antichrist has a sidekick, right? The false prophet, which is actually the main person that does the signs and wonders. Blasphemies. He's given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. 42 months this will go on, which is 3.5 years. He specifically blasphemes against God of the Bible, his holy name, his tabernacle, which is Israel in Jerusalem, and those who dwell in heaven. So this Antichrist is anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-Christian. What system today, or religious system today, fits the bill? Type it in the description, in the comment section. You know what I'm talking about, right? It was granted to him to make war with the saints. Jihad. They've been doing it from the inception of Islam. Muhammad himself did jihad against the Jews and the Christians. He liberated Arabia of all its Jews, right? So he set the standard, he set the precedent, so his followers follow suit. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. If our world systems and democratic systems and the politicians, mainstream media are all supportive of this narrative, we can see how it's going to be worldwide. Pockets of resistance, obviously, because when they try to enforce the mark of the beast, there'll be so many who will say, I will take the mark of the beast. Yes, I will submit, because there's not going to be any other power that's going to be able to challenge the beast. Who's like the beast? Who's able to make war with him? Right? The word of God is telling us. Patience of the saints. the false prophet. He exercises all the authority of the first beast. I'll have to do another video on this to show you the reality that these are political leaders, religious leaders, and military leaders. So they tick all the boxes, and there's only one system that fits the bill. And that's my analysis of the Christmas market attack in Germany. I'll be back again soon. Several things I'm working on, but I'll try to put the videos out at a more regular basis, more frequently. Please remember to share my messages. It helps a lot. And if you're a viewer of my videos and you haven't subscribed, it's free. Hit the subscribe button. I'll be back again soon. Lots of love.